Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Well, they've taken this. No.
Live it up, Coach.
As you can tell, they're pretty excited. So, yeah, but it's all about these guys, this group of guys, and our leadership on our team has carried us the entire year.
That is the head Husker, Will Bolt. Nebraska baseball back on top. What a feel-good weekend and pod for the Big Red as they are your, say it with me, outright Big Ten champs. Welcome to it. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Numbers to get in today. Can dial us up 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. Give us a find and follow on Twitter at Schmidt_radio. Chris Schmidt at Herbal Essence for Elijah Herbel. And can email Chris at hailvarsity.com. We will try and unpack just what Nebraska baseball has done in such a short time. Mike Babcock, usually with us on Wednesdays. Babbers has covered Nebraska baseball for years and is awesome at it. We'll get his take on things in about 20 minutes. Mr. Blackshirt, Charlie McBride, will be with us at 5. And Greg Smith will dial us up in recruiting. You have the numbers. You had a bachelor party weekend, Elijah.
That I did.
For your brother.
For my brother.
Not for you.
Thank God not for me. I'm not ready for any sort of marriage.
I'm not ready for
right
any
now.
Commitment.
Are you serious? I'm 22. Like, maybe for some people.
Good answer. Moving on.
The bachelor party was good. Started off at Topgolf. I almost killed a man at Topgolf on accident.
Did you really?
Yeah. So this was a few drinks in.
Oh no.
We were doing the game at Topgolf where you're aiming for certain holes. And the last one you're going for was the one way in the back, the white hole way back there.
So swing out of your shoes after 14 shots.
So swung out of my shoes, and it was a nice, hot, humid day, so my hands are nice and sweaty.
Oh, no.
So as I finished the swing up over my shoulder, the club flies like 3 bays down and goes past this dude's shoulder. It was I almost sent a man to the hospital.
Bought him a beer, didn't you? And said, my bad?
I said my bad. I think I bought him a beer.
Well, he's going to go code red on you.
Well, if I would have
use the rosin next time.
If I would have hit him, I would have bought him a beer. But I just barely missed, and he still hit a great shot on his next shot. So,
well, the scowl, I can just see it.
I can still see it in my head.
Nebraska baseball was flat out fantastic, and they have shown you their never back down mentality, but they bring it every day. And people can talk about showing up every day. Will Bolt has instilled that show up every day type mantra. And it's worked between Friday nights, bullpen, going 5 innings and kind of sealing the win for Nebraska to get things off on the right foot with the 8-5 win. The incredible comeback where you're down 9-2 against Ohio State, and then you win 11-9. Roach goes out and is just beautiful in a 3-1 win in the second part of the doubleheader. And then just that lack of complacency, to their credit, where you could be scoreboard watching. What's happening with Maryland, what's happening with Michigan. And then the other part of this, the Big Ten, wondering if, hey, should we hose Nebraska even further and make them make up the Northwestern game? Because technically, there's no shot if you have 3 games to play and you have a 3.5 game lead. Well, then there's no shot for Michigan or anyone else to go in the Big Ten. And that was talked a little bit about on the broadcast, but Nebraska is your outright champs. They did it all sorts of different ways. They have power. They hit wonderfully, situationally. They are incredible defensively. They get great work from their bullpen, and their starting pitching has been tremendous. And if somebody's not on, there's another member either on the pitching staff or offensively that is there to pick them up, and they have what you want. What you want in your football program, what you want in your basketball program, a certain mentality that leads to execution, and B, they've got a great mix of young and old, all right, to have this fantastic roster. So here is Will Bolt yesterday, his Zoom session, and this is what's really telling to me. You had two moments to me this season that were pivot points. One was the game against Ohio State where they were down 9-2, and they came back and won that thing 9-11. That was recently, okay? That helped make sure you could go 4-0 this weekend. But let's rewind back, and it's been talked about in the media, and it's been talked about by us, and it's been talked about by Nebraska baseball, just what kind of a learning lesson that Rutgers weekend was, where how are you going to handle success? You're ranked. Where are you at? And we'll get you the latest Kendall Rogers predictions here for Nebraska in the field of 64 in just a moment. But how do you handle success? You've been patted on the back all week. You go out, you get beat in a couple of games that you could have won, and then you just didn't have a good Sunday. And Will Bolt goes back to that moment being a turning point in the season. Here's Coach, and here's how his team reacted a few weeks back that helped lead to what happened, an outright Big Ten championship this weekend.
That was a tough weekend, obviously, and we could have gone one of two ways after that weekend. We could have taken that and said, man, we put too much pressure on ourselves, and, down the stretch, we got to play all these tough teams and all these, we got a tough pod coming up and then another one at the end of the year. And you start looking ahead, you can kind of hit the panic button, or you can regroup and remember that we were on the verge of winning the first two games of that series and just keep playing, good baseball and just try to do it for 9 full innings. And again, I'll continue to point to our captains, our leaders. I had a conversation with them on that Monday right after that weekend and said, look, we're still a great team. Like, let's make sure that, nobody's, going to hit the panic button here. We're going to just keep working, and we're going to keep showing up, and we're going to keep playing good baseball. Again, we've been able to do that. We've been able to, stay focused and stay hungry and stay committed to team baseball.
Well, that they have. They've also been the toughest team, and Will Bolt expanded on that because it doesn't matter your sport. If you and your crew are the toughest on the field, doesn't matter the field. In this instance, we're talking baseball, you usually win. You got to be mentally tough, and we'll dive into a couple of articles out there. It's natural to bring up, okay, Will Bolt did this in his second year, really kind of his first, because you had 15 games last year, and it's also an apples to oranges conversation with what you have versus what you don't have. So it's not equal or on the same playing field as far as I'm concerned when we talk football and basketball. But for Will Bolt to do what he's done is incredible, and I think he's that good. He also had talent, but you got to make sure the talent can go perform, and you got to be right between the ears on top of the physical skills to do it. As messy as baseball is on people with slumps or pressure moments or just being locked in all the time consistently, that's how you win in baseball. You got to be tough, and here's more on Bolt with that team toughness.
We always talk about it, the tougher team wins just about every time on any given day. I mean, and that the most mentally tough team is going to be the most focused team, the team that's most dedicated to playing team baseball on any given day, being the most competitive team, the team that's most able to put aside any sort of distractions or outside variables and just go out and compete and just do it pitch to pitch and do it every day and show up and do those things. And it's just something that we really believe in, that the tougher team wins. And, we can have these goals of saying we need X amount of wins or we need to do this, that, or the other. We can keep it pretty simple and say we want to be the toughest team in the country. And in order to do that, you've got to show up every day and feel like if we're the toughest team in the country, that means we get to play for a while.
So the conversation can turn, okay, baseball just did this in short order. Awesome. They're fantastic. They deserve it. They're good. Will Bolt's fantastic. Why can't football? Why hasn't football? Why can't basketball do that? And I didn't jump to that. That's not my first thought. My first thought is Will Bolt is incredible, and what you hired to enhance has done that in short order. That's big time. Now, from a football conversation, Elijah, you'd like it to be ahead of schedule or on schedule. It's not. But it can be with a good 2021 season. Same with basketball. The mayor and company's done a money job of bringing in talent, and they got better last year in a really difficult year. Now, that first year was just tough, and you kind of had to corral who you could corral, and they made quick adjustments. It's hard to talk football, baseball, basketball. Those are your three big-time sports. Obviously, volleyball's on its own pedestal because it's national championship good. You want football to get there. You want basketball to be in the dance. You want baseball to be doing super regionals or beyond, right? And it's just a tough conversation to have, but it's out there about why isn't football doing what baseball did in such short order. And my take is it's just Bolt he came in to enhance, all right? And he'll tell you about it in just a second, what Darren Erstad had set up for him. Very different, and I know culture and roster and previous staff, that wears on some of you. You look at it as excuses. You just like, shut up and go in. I get it. But there's some reality to it. And it just takes a little bit longer, in my humble opinion, in football and even in basketball. Not that I'm diminishing what Will Bolt did. I think Will walked into a situation unlike what Fred Hoiberg's walked into, and absolutely what Scott Frost walked into. That's the difference. And that's not scoffing at all at what Will Bolt did and this team and this crew. Not at all. It's super impressive, and it's super impressive to do in conference only.
Yeah, what I'll say is in baseball, there are a lot more Division I, Power 5 ready players coming out of high school every single year, but you can't discount Will Bolt for that. He went and hit on those guys that he went out and recruited and got them to campus. Look at the guys who have been instant successes in year one. Max Anderson, Bryce Matthews, two of the leaders of this weekend are both freshmen coming in, making an instant impact because Will Bolt went out and was able to go get these guys. He identified the talent, and he went and got the talent. But what Will Bolt has done well this year is he has instilled a mentality in this team that I haven't seen in this Husker baseball team before. When they're down 2-3 runs early, they're not out of it. And previous Husker baseball teams, you'd kind of see some quick at-bats. They lose some fight.
Press.
Yeah, but this team just does not give up. I mean, look at Griffin Everett's home run against Ohio State in the 9th inning.
Sweet.
Apparently, he was dealing with full-body cramps all game and was telling his teammates before he went out there, I think I only got one swing in me before my body gives out. And what did he do with that one swing? He battled through the pain, took his swing, hit it out. Rest is history. Huskers went 4-0 this weekend. It's incredible.
It is 1,000% about mentality, and Will Bolt is above and beyond his years when it comes to mentality, and that's a credit to him. That's a credit to his mentors, Rob Childress. It's a credit to Coach Van Horn down at Arkansas. I mean, that's that blueprint. Last thought here from Will Bolt specifically on, what he had when he got here. And there are still guys on this team that won it with Nebraska baseball in 2017, but it's hit a different level.
Like I said, I mean, this wasn't a rebuild. It wasn't, we have a very, a lot of top end talent, guys that were on the roster when we got here. We just felt like we were able to surround them with more good players. I think just the overall depth. I feel like we were able to do that. We were able to build some real depth, which I think is what you need in order to have a chance to make a run like we did, where you're not playing a 24 game conference schedule. You're playing a grind of 44 conference games. You better be deep. And so I felt like we're able to do that. We were able to add to the top end talent that we do have and bring some guys in that have really made a difference on the team. But it wasn't a rebuild. I said that when I got the job. It was just our job to continue that momentum that Darren and his staff had created, and just kind of put our stamp on it. Just put the style of play that we were going to establish, and just continue to build that every year through recruiting.
Nebraska right now has been, at least per Kendall Rogers, they are projected as a 2 seed, but they've done enough as a regular season conference champ to move out of the projected Fayetteville Regional. Our friend Brunsey tweeting this out. And you're a 2 seed still, but you're a 2 seed in the Texas Tech Regional. You are no longer having to jack with Arkansas. At least the way it's projected. Yeah. Now, Nebraska needs to finish this thing out right and win the series against Michigan. And I'll be interested to see, you've already won it. So where's your focus? And knowing Will Bolt, he's going to want to hand out a butt kicking to Michigan, or at least win the series. And where's Michigan's head out with there's a lot to play for. But when it comes to winning the conference, there's nothing to play for. Nebraska's already got that wrapped up.
Yeah, and just speaking of the regionals, I'm not looking too far into that until we get the official ones. But as it stands, according to Kendall Rogers, Nebraska, if they were to win the regional, I think then would go to the Fayetteville Super Regional should Arkansas make it out. I believe if my math is correct there with the seeding.
Sure, and that would be so juicy. Oh, so juicy. But we're getting way ahead of ourselves. First things first. And see where you land in the NCAA tournament. Mike Babcock's next to talk Husker baseball with Hail Varsity.
And we're back.
Fellas, think we could listen to the radio
on Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Yes! That's awesome!
Charlie McBride's coming up here at 5. Greg Smith on recruiting. Husker baseball, the focus today. We welcome in historian, author, Hall of Famer with Hail Varsity Magazine, HailVarsity.com. Mike Babcock with us. Babber's usually a Wednesday dude, but it doesn't happen every Monday that Nebraska is celebrating an outright conference championship, and first time since 2017. Mike, what did you think of Sunday? What did you think of the Husker weekend with how they kind of stood strong?
Well, I thought it was a typical Bolt-coached team weekend, and the game that I point to was the one that they were down to Ohio State 9-2, and they came back. They got 5 runs in the 7th. They got 4 runs in the 9th. And as you mentioned earlier, Griffin Everett hits a home run and then struggles around the base because he's dealing with cramps. He hits the 2-run home run to tie it with 1 out, and then they get 2 more runs and win the game. I mean, that's where Nebraska is. And then you get the great pitching performance from Chance Roach, complete game, and then you get 5 pitchers combined on a shutout. So I think a typical Bolt weekend, and it was a good way to wrap up the title, playing the way they did.
Mike, speak a little bit to Will Bolt's mentality. He's always been the same guy, and he's been very credit-driven, and I say that with he was part of Hurrdat's staff, so he knows that, and he was, he said it towards the end of the Zoom, it wasn't a rebuild. It was just, let's put some more talent around, let's get some more depth, and that's paid off. But for him to do this, whatever you want to call last year, all right, before it got chopped, and then this year is remarkable. I think he had some good players. I think he had some pretty nice talent, and I think he brought some nice talent in. But to get everyone pulling on the rope the same way this soon and have that toughest team mentality, that spars conversation about some of the other sports and wanting to see it. If Will can do it, why can't it happen quicker in hoops or in football? That commentary, that narrative's been out a little bit here in the last 15, 20 hours.
Yeah, and it's difficult to compare those sports.
Exactly.
I back away from that. I guess I'm not smart enough to make that comparison and think that because baseball does it, basketball can do it, or football can do it, or should do it, or whatever. In the case of Scott Frost in football, he's had 3 seasons. This will be his 4th, and one of those was that COVID weird thing where everybody jumped on Nebraska for wanting to play, and then they end up playing kind of a reduced season. It's just a different thing. But by the same token, you really have to credit Bolt because what were the Huskers last year? 7-8 when the COVID thing hit. So you have to build that confidence and that grit, determination, whatever, coming off of a season where you didn't quite. It was cut short, obviously, but you didn't quite get done what you would wanted to do as a lead into a season now where you're Big Ten champions. And I think it was, I think it is significant, the guys that he brought in, and we've talked about it, but the young guys that have contributed and the leadership they've gotten from the veterans.
That mix has been perfect for winning baseball, the mentality. And then, Mike, this team always finds a way to respond. They responded after a tough start against Ohio State. They responded the weekend after getting swept by Rutgers. And I applaud the response. You're going to get knocked down. How do you get up, right? Or do you get up? And I think his team's been so resilient in that aspect. But they don't blink mentally, and that's so important with baseball.
Yeah, and as Will pointed out, the first two games of the Rutgers series, they lost, but they were in it. It was the third game that was the concerning one. They got beat 6-0, and they just didn't have it there. So that's the concern that you have. Now they've won 9 of 10 since then. The only loss was to Indiana in the Piscataway pod. So it's about attitude and believing in yourself, and really. Cliche, I say this every time we talk, but it really is one game at a time. I think they'll be focused in the Michigan series. It'll be Friday's game, and then it'll be Saturday's game, and then it'll be Sunday's game. That's just the way Nebraska approaches things. That's the way that Will Bolt demands it, and that's the way the players accept it.
Mike, there was a lot made on social media over the weekend of just the preseason predictions for this Husker baseball team, not even in the top 6 of the Big Ten. It kind of seems like the team took that disrespect to heart, and I got to say, I looked back on what we talked about this Husker baseball team. I don't think we saw this coming. So just how were they able to exceed all these expectations? I mean, the pitching was great, the hitting was great, and that young talent was great too.
Yeah, they brought in some guys, and again, they brought in, freshmen have contributed. Transfers have contributed. They had some solid guys. They had the super seniors that came back. It just was, in a lot of ways, was a perfect storm in terms of guys fitting in and the way things came together for this team. But, I didn't see it coming. I don't know that I really accepted the not in the top 6 preseason. I thought maybe Nebraska could be in there. But Nebraska does, Nebraska is still scuffling in general to get some respect in the Big Ten, and the Big Ten is in turn scuffling to get some national respect in this conference-only season, because now Nebraska is 19 in Baseball America, 20 in D1 baseball, I think, and the collegiate baseball writers, 26 Nebraska still is. It's just tough to get that national respect with a conference-only schedule, and I wonder how many of the other Big Ten teams are going to get in. 3, you think? Probably a maximum of 3, maybe 4. I think
I have 4 right now, based on Kendall's latest projection, and the last. One of the last teams in is Indiana. You have Michigan, you have Maryland, and then you have Nebraska that's now in the Lubbock Regional. At least those are the projections. And, what was your takeaway with Will's response to you? Because you asked him before this weekend about the Rodney Dangerfield elephant, the no respect part with either his team or the Big Ten. I mean, the Big Ten's done themselves no favors. They've been a mess. They've been a joke when it comes to softball and baseball, and yet we're on the heels of Michigan getting to, nitty-gritty time against Vanderbilt in Omaha. That wasn't that long ago. And you have one of the hottest teams in college baseball that's also good, not lucky, in Husker baseball that could maybe make some noise this postseason.
Well, it's just a Southern mindset in that, and the Pac-12 gets some get some love there because I think we've seen the success that Oregon State had, and Oregon, I think, is in the rankings this year, has gotten some respect, but it's difficult. And I think the way Nebraska has played down the stretch, winning 9 of its last 10 games, they ought to reconsider who might be considered among the 20 locations for regionals, because I think Nebraska maybe deserves it, and the attendance that they would have in such a situation would be over the top, I think. So, I'd like to see them look at that again. I know they wouldn't, but it's just a hypothetical thing for me. But, it's just, again, it might be a little bit of motivation for the players, but both, straight ahead, just do what we do. You can't control the rest of it, so control what you can control.
Now, Mike, the Michigan series this weekend isn't important in terms of Big Ten standings. Huskers have already locked up the championship, obviously. But how important is it in terms of gaining this respect that we're talking about? If the Huskers go sweep Michigan, where do you think that puts them in the talk of, maybe the NCAA could amend what they said previously and give the Huskers a regional? Is that out of the question if the Huskers were to have an impressive performance against Michigan this weekend?
I would think so. Don't you think that's out of the question? I mean, even with an impressive series against Michigan, I think that's, the NCAA is going to look at it and say, no, we've made the decision. We're going to pick 16 of these 20 teams to host regionals that we've already identified. And you guys talked about how Nebraska right now is projected as a 2 seed. So, that would seem like a logical possibility, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Mike, I've got less than 2 minutes, about 60 seconds or so here. Rob Childress, a thought on his career at A&M. Tough for him to go out like he did.
Yeah, I got a lot of respect for him. Did a great job, I think. A great coach. It's a tough sport. Expectations in Texas A&M are pretty high there. But I got a lot of respect for Rob Childress. I would not say a bad thing about him. I think that was a tremendous staff when Van Horn and Childress and Mike Anderson was on that staff, I think. But, that was really a good staff.
I mean, he did well at A&M, but just not well enough for their liking.
It really is. What have you done for me lately? Kind of a thing, and it's probably Nebraska fans can't even understand how it is in baseball at Texas A&M.
That's fair.
That's a tough go there.
It's football magnified, huh?
Yeah. It's a tough thing there in the SEC schools.
Babbers, real quick here. Yearbook is around the corner here. The Great Hale varsity staff putting together another winner for your football pleasure this summer. Give us a quick thought here on so far what you've seen from the yearbook.
Well, yeah, I just got done going through a story that on Austin Allen that Jacob Padilla wrote, and there are going to be some good features in there, and it's going to be it's well covered, and the excitement of we're going to have a real season, and we're going to have probably real fans in the stands instead of cutouts. So it's all good. It's all part of that.
That is good. Can't wait to read Jacob's feature. Of course, Mike's got his feature on the 71 team and defense, and Vogel and Aaron Sorensen, of course, Greg Smith and the crew, Derek Peterson, Dr. Petey, going to want to get that yearbook. Mike, we'll get caught up again. Thanks for your time. Thanks for making an adjustment to talk some Big Red baseball with us today.
Hey, great talking to you. Happy Monday.
You too. There he is, Mike Babcock with us. And good stuff on Husker baseball. Can follow Mike on Twitter at MDBabs. Couple of thoughts, news and notes with Husker football. From a recruiting standpoint, the speedster out of Hayes, might have run away from the Big Red. Also, Adrian's podcast. Some thoughts on the way with Hale Varsity.
Chime in 402-466-ESPN or email the show, Chris@HaleVarsity.com.
Just try me.
Back to Hale Varsity Radio.
Great to have you back in. It's Hale Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. And some thoughts here as we'll spend more time on Husker baseball. as the Big Red, your outright Big Ten conference champs. And tell you what, man, they found a way to get it handled. That's pretty awesome. I have not had a chance to check out Adrian Martinez's podcast, but it's been getting some good reviews. And you know what? Adrian's the first of what'll probably be many high-profile college athletes, when we talk name, image, and likeness, to get in and do their own podcast, Athletes Unfiltered, and some pretty cool insight from Adrian. I mean, he's been on with us either at media days or during the recruitment, or back when we could do one-on-ones. He was fantastic, and I love chatting with him, and the fact that he's hosting his own podcast. Good on him, because he'll do a really nice job with it, him and his partner on it. And, I wonder, A, if this spurs more starting quarterback podcast. But Adrian's got a story to tell, and Adrian's got a unique viewpoint through things with that pressure of being the quarterback at Nebraska, the expectations, and then, you're going into this junior/senior season with a lot of A, frustration, B, redemption on your mind. Not that you've done anything wrong or been bad. It's you just want to win, and that's kind of been the reality here the last few years. Is you just haven't won enough, and that's something he spent time on in with his podcast, and he gets it, and he's trying, and I think he's gonna, dare I say it, on the heels of Phil Mickelson having a great weekend. I think Adrian's in his happy place right now. I think he's finally kind of at peace. And, oh, yeah, by the way, I think that he feels pretty good about some of the other guys around him on offense.
And one of the interesting things that I heard in the podcast was just kind of, it sounded like how he grew up in dealing with how the fans of Nebraska care about this program, where he said, like, yeah, you go on Twitter after you have a bad game and you see all these things people are saying
He's
about
got a mean tweets segment.
Yeah, but then he says, and then I go out and ref youth football out in York, Nebraska, and all these people are coming up to me telling me how much I mean to their kids, how cool it was to see me out the fields today, and just how much Nebraska football means to them. And I realized that, there is that vocal minority, but the vast majority of Nebraska just loves this football team as a whole. And I think Adrian's always been a mature kid, even back to his freshman year, dealing with the media here at Nebraska. But it was interesting to hear him now as a senior, and to hear him just kind of be unfiltered and unplugged about what it's actually like to be a Husker football player at Nebraska. One of the things that not many people in this state actually get. Everyone watches the Husker football team. Everyone has their opinions on the Husker football team, but it's not often you hear from a current player what it's actually like to be dealing with us, the fans. So I just thought that was insightful, and I mean, Adrian's always been mature, and I think that really shined through in the podcast.
Well, and that's just it, man. 18 to 22-year-olds got a lot of responsibility, but they're also still kids, and they're out there. And what level of Husker fan are you? Are you all over them? Are you supportive? Are you in that gray area where if it's going well, you're behind them, win or tie? Or are you all over them if they lose? And it just kind of varies, quite honestly.
And it's like, I'm trying to imagine me going out and umpiring a high school baseball game if some dude behind the plate was heckling me going, you had a bad show on Thursday. you really messed up that phone call. Like, I just can't imagine that. And that's the pressure that these 18 to 22-year-olds are under, that whenever Adrian goes out in public, it's not like no one in the state's going to recognize him. Like, I work in radio. Like, most people aren't going to recognize me when I go out and about. But he's always got this standard to live up to, because everywhere he goes, people are going to recognize him. So I think very good for him to be doing a podcast and be able to put these things out there and really show the fans this is what it's like to be a Husker football player.
Well, let's talk about a guy that Nebraska had on their radar and recruited at a high level, even had to campus during the spring game, and that's Kanik, the flyer, the linebacker out of Hayes, Kansas, and was part of a package, right, with the teammate. And right now, this kid has absolutely just blown up, Elijah. He's gone from all right, Nebraska's got him here, and then it came to Clemson calling, and now it's been the who's who of college football. We're talking USC. We're talking Alabama. We're talking LSU. I mean, just go down the list of SEC schools, and it's been one thing for Nebraska, Georgia. It's one thing for Nebraska to have gotten them here on an unofficial, but I don't believe, per Greg Smith, that there's any shot of getting him here for an official visit. And I think there's been bigger fish on his plate than Nebraska here moving forward.
Now, you sometimes hear the correlation versus causation, and what I've seen this as is it's just the correlation so strong that I'm going to assume causation here, which you should never do, but I'm going to do it. And it's whenever DK ran that 100-meter dash with the U.S. track and field team, and then later that week, Jaron Kanak went and ran the exact same time in a high school meet at 18 years old, and then a week later he's got an offer to Alabama. A week and a half later he's got an offer to USC. It's I mean, whenever you see this guy is as fast as DK Metcalf, I think heads kind of turn. And the Huskers, good on them for being in early, but I mean, it reminds me of the same situation as Isaiah Simmons going out to Clemson, where once those big dogs start calling, are you really that interested in Nebraska anymore? Like, if I got Nick Saban on the phone, do I really want to go to a Nebraska team that just went 3-5?
It's Clemson, it's Bama. I mean, it's Georgia. I mean, it's the who's who of college football, and it's not that Nebraska can't be a player in the college football landscape. Absolutely, they can be, but they need guys like Kanak to be on the roster to help elevate. So, credit Nebraska, but they're going to have to make an adjustment. We'll talk with Greg Smith about that here in less than an hour. You know, where does Nebraska go? Also interested to dive in on what is going on, and this is a story that's out by Alex Scarborough with ESPN College Football, ESPN.com. Welcome to the new wild, wild west, and that is the era of tampering in college football, where you've got programs contacting a kid in season to get him on the roster, or kind of getting in somebody's ear who can get in said kid's ear about how, you know, you're not being used, you're not playing, what's going on. We got room for you here. So a lot of these portal deals, in a lot of instances, the article says 60% are already done deals. And I think of a couple of instances. One, you had Tennessee's top linebacker moved to Alabama. Now, Tennessee's made a coaching change, but you have this Tennessee stud now at Alabama. And I'd love to get the E-True Hollywood story on Wandale Robinson. How many Kentucky area codes were coming in his way, football related?
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Some thoughts on Phil Mickelson beating Father Time. Pretty impressive. Football. Many takes from Charlie McBride, Mr. Blackshirt in 10 minutes. Reminder about your friends at West Blue Realty. Are you buying or selling a home? Hey, you can make a pretty penny off your home now, but West Blue, man, they specialize in residential home sales in Lincoln and the surrounding communities. For a limited time, you mentioned Hail Varsity, you can get up to $1,000 on the closing of your next home purchase. 2 names to know and 2 names to call with West Blue. Tom Luby, 402-540-3768. Kelly Hofschneider, give Kelly a call as well at 402-202-2312. It pays to work with West Blue. Get an appointment today, 1120 K Street, Suite 200. Log on now, westbluerealty.com. So I got a kick out of this on social media, and it was Phil's mom texting Phil's wife. And, you know, only moms can get away with the full name. It's not Phil or Lefty. It's Philip. Tell Philip to just par in. Don't hit bombs or activate calves. Just par. They have to catch him. He won't listen to his mother, but he'll listen to you. Text him. Hurry. Of course, T to the wife's like, I'll text Tim. Caddy. He is the only one that Phil's listening to today.
Did you see that on the 16th hole on Sunday, whenever he already had like a 3 or 4 stroke lead at that point?
It got tight.
Yeah, it got tight, but on that 16th hole, he actually hit the longest drive of anybody that weekend on the 16th hole. When he should be playing safe, just trying to lock up the. I mean, Phil doesn't play. That's lefty.
Dude, he's a gambler, and we'll talk to Shuey on Wednesday, and we'll get his take on things. But man, yeah, and just the crowd, the mob, the people's champion, where people are all around him. It's like a scene in the end of Happy Gilmore, where they're just engulfing him, and then on that 18th green, where it's just 15 deep. The folks wanting to see him do it. Here's Phil after the win yesterday.
I just had to work harder physically to be able to practice as long as I wanted to. And I've had to work a lot harder to be able to maintain focus throughout a round. That's been the biggest challenge of late. And my desire to play is the same. Like I've never been driven by exterior things. I've always been, intrinsically motivated because I love to compete. I love playing the game. I love having opportunities to play against the best at the highest level. And so that's what drives me. And I think that's what has the belief that I could still do it inspired me to work harder. And I just didn't see why it couldn't be done. It just took a little bit more effort.
Well, you got to make the adjustment to Father Time. Phil will be 51, but for him to be a major winner again at his age, and he looks great. He looks absolutely as good as he's looked for a long, long time. But that was a wonderful scene, and it was cool to see him hang on and then kind of put his finishing stamp on it.
Yeah, and what a way to be able to do it back in front of the fans again. I mean, we haven't seen scenes like that at a golf course since before COVID. I haven't seen scenes like that in general, really, since before COVID. I mean, I'm not a big Phil Mickelson fan, but I tuned in yesterday just because it was incredible to see everyone going down to 18, running up the fairway, trying to get a good spot to see that final putt. It was just incredible stuff.
How many would you and I have put in the water?
All of them. After going to Topgolf, all of them.
All of them. Get Elijah another shot of Fireball. He's going to crank this one and kill a patron, nearly. Charlie McBride's next hour 2, Hail Varsity.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone.
Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Welcome to it, Hour 2. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Little programming note, we will be at Haymarket Park tomorrow for a Roadshow Tuesday ahead of the Salt Dogs home opener. Well, I'll be at Haymarket. Elijah will be duct taped back here in studio. Sorry about that.
I had to be here anyway because I'm working that Salt Dogs game tomorrow night.
So
it all works out.
It does. I will hopefully be... surrounded by brats and beer and all the ballpark goodies. And then it's going to be packed in red this weekend for Michigan coming to town. We say hi to Mr. Blackshirt, Charlie McBride, Mondays with Charlie. Coach, how's the weather? We finally got some sunshine and 80s here. How's the forecast your way?
Yesterday it was nice out, a little drizzle all part of the day, and today it's beautiful. There's guys out. I'm watching guys out catching fish right now in front of my house. So there must be something down there.
when are you going fishing, or are you just letting everyone else catch up to your haul?
I'll probably go in about a week or so because I got one of my sons is coming, and he's a fishing nut. He has to work most of the time, but and then I got one of them here now who loves to fish, and we got a pontoon boat. Of course, it has to have a depth finder on it, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, it was It's been a pretty good last week. The weather's been pretty good.
Are you a let's use dynamite guy, or do you have another type of bait?
Oh, I'm not a live bait guy. I like it. Well, off the shore here, I fly fish once in a while,
all right.
And then in the water we troll most of the time.
Okay, so we'll get into some football and some baseball thoughts, but
baseball.
We'll start there then before we get into some fishing. I'm interested here. What do you think of old Will Bolt and his team? I'm sure you were watching this weekend.
Well, I did. I actually didn't get a chance to, but I kind of kept, I kept track of it a little bit, and he's done an amazing job. I mean, it's coming in there and recruiting and coming up with what he's got, and all of a sudden he pops a championship. That just goes to show you what can be done, and I think a lot of it has to do with are you recruiting competitors, and I think the way some of these kids won some games, they came from behind and they look like a baseball team. I mean, just their hearts are all in the right place. Let's put it that way. Make it simple. Mm. But I'm really happy for them. I mean, couldn't ask for anything better for the beginning year. What they do from now is just icing on the cake, I think, for the first year.
Charlie McBride's with us, Hail Varsity Radio, Mondays with Charlie. Coach, when it comes to what you just said, I mean, that got all of us to go, wow, the recruiting a competitor, that seems second nature and obvious to you because you did it for so long. But is there a way to, I guess, if you find a kid you really like, can you make him into a competitor if he's not wired that way and then run with the athleticism, or do you have to go with the mentality first and foremost?
It's really funny. I all the years, and I'm sure there's guys that'll disagree with me. There's certain kinds of players that, have a, let's put it this way, if they're a defensive player, they usually have some kind of a temperament, a little more reckless kid.
Uh-huh.
Then you're going to find on offense where you'll find a more, a kid that doesn't look like he's going to do anything. I've had guys on defense that, if you met him, you'd think he's an altar boy, but you get in the game and he's a whole different kind of cat. So each kid is different. So after you meet enough kids in this business, you start to get to a point where you can pretty much tell by just almost talking to them sometimes. Plus, you add up what the coaches have said, and sometimes your own coach is going to really do everything he can to push you and say some things that might be a little exaggerating at times, but they can't. With the eye in the sky that you look at is gonna it tells a lot of the stories. The things you'd like to see you'd like to see him at a game and on the sideline and how he reacts with his other teammates.
Well, that mentality's so key, and Will Bolt wants to be the toughest baseball team there is. I mean, that was kind of their mantra, and it sounds a lot like football, Coach.
Yeah, well, it is. I mean, there's no difference in it. It has a lot to do with what's upstairs in your head and how you're approaching the game. A lot of guys can go to a football game. I mean, I used to remember when I started out, in weight training. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going over there. That was the start of my attitude. But then I always found out every time I went over there, and I didn't want to, I probably had one of the best workouts I've ever had. Mm-hmm. So, you can get that kind of approach to it. You just push yourself to do the things that are right and the things that are going to make you a better player and a better person. Because when you do things like that, it goes on in your life usually. I always looked at my dad as a salesman. Mm-hmm. He always used to say, go ahead and drink all the beer you want. If you're a salesman, you'll never make any money. Because if you're going to sit and do that and decide, well, I'm not going to go see this person, I'll go have a couple of beers, or I'm going to go, do something else, and you're going to be a loser. And there's a lot of things he did in his sales business that I saw when I was a kid. How hard he worked it. He sold abrasives, and he ended up getting the biggest business he could get would be working in the forging mills and the steel mills, and selling these big grinding wheels, which are very expensive and things like that. And it takes years. It took him 15 years to get the business, but he never gave up, and that's how he got the job, because they always looked at him when the guy they were buying from died or goes or somewhere else. They always say, let's go with Mac. He's going to be here. So, that's kind of the thing that happens in the game. Sometimes your attitude's a little screwy at times, but your teammates can help out that way. If they recognize that you're not, get some encouragement and get them going. And that's where the leadership comes in too, a lot of the way.
Now, I like that. If you sit and drink beer all day, you can't be a salesman. I think that would actually make you a fisherman if you drink beer all day.
Listen, I don't want to tell anybody, but when I was a kid, there's a guy here that was a real good fisherman, and I'll tell you what, I'm the only guy that would sit 8 or 10 hours in a boat with him, and everybody else wanted about 15 minutes. They were done. I want to go in. And I was never that way. And, I just hung it out and got to be pretty good. He was a great fisherman. I sucked, but he was good. But I had fun fishing with him when I was young.
Now, you went fishing with T.O. a few times. And what was that like? And did you ever outfish him?
Well, what T.O. does is let's say you go up. We went up to the Snake River one time, and we went out there, and we had some snow the night before, and he's got a scroll with him, and he puts all his fish in it and all this stuff, and I got a pair of jeans on and a rod and reel, and we're going to cast in the river, and he says, well, I'll see you later, and he takes off. And he's the kind that likes to be with him by himself and fish by himself, because I think he gets away from the talking and puts some concentration in it. And that's the way I think, he is. A lot of it is he spends a lot of time, at home probably, as the years went on, working at stuff at home where people weren't really around and bothering him. Mm-hmm. And, I think, a lot of the coaches, that's what happens. You come in the morning and you'll hear guys say, well, listen, last night I was thinking, and why don't we look at this and that? Mm-hmm. And that's how things happen.
So some solitude on the Snake River, huh?
Well, that's what he does. He likes to fish by him. I've gone fishing with him up at Wahoo and things like that, but 4 o'clock comes, that's it. It's over, because he took his kids skiing. Okay. And so we had some some things we had to do by the end of the day, and fishing had to stop.
Sure. No, I get you. Charlie McBride's with us. Coach, how would you deal with the tampering that is going on? You got a kind of a new Wild West out there in college football. You've got coaches kind of anonymously talking about as high as 60% of the transfers that go into the portal have been approached in season. They're getting poached in season. They don't name schools, but they say some pretty big name schools. Nebraska lost some kids to different programs that left, but It's pretty rampant. I mean, what can you do? How do you handle it? And it may be a situation where you got a trainer or a family friend that's in the ear of this kid, so it's not a coach directly, or you got an old high school teammate's the one reaching out to see how happy a kid is at a school.
Well, one of the rules that we always had was that if you were a friend of the kid for a long time, you had family relations with him and things like that, you can't stop that. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's the problem is when you get some guy from the outside walking up to you, and dealing with you that way and talking to you about this or that, or even if you have some players that do it, and they're good friends of theirs, so they can talk, and coaches will coach them to talk and what to say and and that kind of thing. The tampering thing, I think, if you got a guy that's just locked in and you got him. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I think there ought to be. There ought to be a serious. I really think there ought to be something that happens to them seriously. I mean, I think that that kind of stuff. To me, I just would feel guilty.
Sure.
I mean, winning. I mean, and people knowing that maybe I cheated on them or I did something to get the kid. And you'll talk to his high school coach to try to get him to do things. You'll talk to his junior college coach and go on, or maybe one of the coaches even on their staff that's a friend of yours.
Mm-hmm.
That if the guy knows he's going to leave, and I'll help my buddy out and that kind of thing. It's going to be unruly. I mean, as far as how you can ever stop that stuff, and. We used to say there's always a bag man in every corner of the earth, and here's the thing: in the Southeast Conference, I always got the feeling that everybody was never going to turn either each other in, and they just went wild. And I can't prove that; I don't know it, but a lot of people have said it to me that. Down here, it's a whole different can of worms. It's like when I was recruiting and we could only see a guy 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
I went down with Jack Pierce to talk to a big defensive lineman in LaGrange, Georgia, and I sat there, and the assistant principal said the guy's been here 25 days in a row.
Jeez.
Sitting in the gym with the coach, and I said something to the guy, and you know what he said to me? We can't count down here.
That was his response.
So I just said fine, and that was the end of it. But the kid went to Auburn just like, clockwork. I mean, they spent the time on him, and, and the kid knows that, and he appreciates it. But does he know you're cheating? I don't know. What does he feel about that? That's something that I can't answer, because some kids just think that's great.
The attention's one thing, but 25-3 is not. That's not a fair fight. Good luck trying to get a relationship developed.
Well, I'll tell you one thing I do. The first thing I do is say you got one turn. Mm-hmm. You can't go to a school and then quit and go to another one and then quit there and go to another one and quit there.
Right.
You got one chance. The next one you're out. Mm-hmm. You just forget it. But they don't have. It's politically incorrect to tell a kid that he can't do what he does now. That's just the way people are looking at it. There's no real discipline behind it. You know what happens? Mm-hmm. He'll never succeed in life because he'll quit every time something goes wrong. Mm. And and those are things when you go out to get a job and you find out this kid's been at 4 different colleges and his dad put him in this one and his mom put him in that one, or all that. And he never made his own mind up. Stay away from him.
Charlie McBride's with us. Mondays with Charlie. Coach, catch a lot of fish. We'll get back at you next week. How's that sound?
I'm going to try to get a bunch of bluegill.
You do bluegill.
I like bigger fish, but I'll tell you what, bluegill tastes good to me.
Hey, it tastes all the same, and they're really tasty. That's good stuff. Coach, you be good. Thanks for the time today.
Okay, guys. Thanks for having me. Talk to you later. Bye now.
There he is, Mr. Blackshirt, Charlie McBride.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for spending time. Be sure to check out Charlie McBride on the on-demand section, ESPNLincoln.com. Also, the ESPN Twitter handle at ESPNLincoln. Welcome in with HailVarsity.com and magazine. Greg Smith with us at Greg Smith HV on Twitter. Mr. Greg, how are you?
I am doing very well. Happy to be here, except for my Lakers are down. And we've already talked about that a little bit before I came on air. But, yeah, Lakers are down. Got me in a little bad mood, but I'm bouncing back.
Are you speaking with Jacob Padilla?
We have not talked about this series a single time. No. Nope.
I just, the next time we're all in the office together, I just don't know if, Jacob's going to get up and walk to the can, and Greg, you get up to go fill up the coffee, and all of a sudden there's a hip check. I mean, I just don't know how you channel your anger, bro.
It depends on how this goes, man. Like, it depends. Like, on one hand, I am happy for him that his team has finally crawled out of the basement and they have finally made it into the playoffs in his lifetime. On the other hand, the Lakers got to get this thing done.
Well, what's the line that Jacob would have to cross for you to start standing up for your team physically? Well, if he calls LeBron Le Flop, do you have to start throwing punches?
Maybe we have to go to there. Yeah, that would be pretty strong. Yeah, that might get it done.
I just don't. Jacob's just not a taunter. Or if he is, he's great at it, and it's like 3 words, but you're left so profound, like, dude, what did you just say to me? And I got nothing to return.
Yeah, the problem would be Jacob would come at you with facts, and that would just really hurt you. That's what would be the thing.
That's good. Well, I want to see you two like on a Zoom call or a little on a podcast hit where you're just there's that uncomfortable silence or there's that uncomfortable tension in the room between Suns and Laker fan.
Oh, I mean, it would be good. That'd be quality stuff right there.
You go to your corner, you go to your corner. All right, let's talk about Jaron Kanak because he is running away from Nebraska. The Hayes product is so high level, and Nebraska, obviously, Greg identified that, did everything they could, and then a 10-300 happened, and the rest of the college football world was like, yeah, let's go visit this kid or get in contact. So you just reported earlier today there's no official visit scheduled.
Yeah, correct. I talked to Jaron earlier today. That I was going to check in with him actually on just like kind of what it was like to have like this explosion of offers, right? Because I think in the same day or the same couple of days, he got USC, Florida, Alabama, Texas A&M, Georgia, and others, right? And those are just some of the highlights. And Michigan was in there. And so I was going to contact him and just do a little story on what it had been like to have your recruitment kind of blow up and change and see all that. Until in the meantime, I say, well, hey, just to double check, is that official to Nebraska still on? He said, no, it is not. And so essentially he's resetting his recruitment, and he's going to check out some of these heavyweights that have offered him recently. Nebraska, by the way, is not the only school that got their official visit canceled because he also had them set up to Kansas, Kansas State, and Washington State, and none of those are happening as of now.
Well, I mean, there's a new leaderboard. I mean, it's Alabama, it's Oklahoma, it's Georgia. I would imagine it's Clemson for sure. Yep. With the Kansas connection, and he'll. Let me ask you this: Do you think Clemson will still have him do a workout? Because it sounds like they've got one spot left for 3 linebackers, and they're all freak athletes. So right now, Clemson gets to pick who they want, as does Bama, as does Kirby and Georgia. Right? I mean, they're just that good. Mm-hmm. And then you've got, the Kansases and Nebraskas and K-States and Wazoos that this kid could be a kind of a program changer from an athleticism standpoint at linebacker. And I mean, Nebraska did everything they could, Greg, it sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely they did. And like you mentioned earlier, like Nebraska was in on him early and really believed in him early and built a great relationship with him. He always had nothing but good things to say about Nebraska. But I do think, outside of kind of now the Nebraska or like his interest in Nebraska kind of falling off, it will be fascinating to see what happens with him and Clemson now. Because if you're Clemson, they're in an extremely unique spot where they really don't have to chase guys, right? They don't offer a lot of kids anymore. They get to pick who they want in these like top 3 rated recruiting classes every year. But if your like main competition on a national stage is already offering him, can you afford to say, hey, I still want you to come out and work out June 1st before we're leaving offer you? I think that Bama offer could have changed that for him, but we'll see, because they don't have to, because like you said, they've got a couple other kids that are high level that they could also go and get.
Hitting Recruiting with Greg Smith, HailVarsity.com and magazine at Greg Smith HV. So, Greg, a thought here on the quarterback chase for 2022. A kid I really like, and I know he's not had as much actual football time versus camps, is Bianco out of Hawaii. Where does he stand with Nebraska? Where's Morris at? Give me the rundown here. What's the latest on the quarterback pursuit?
Yeah, I think Bianco, Morris, Connor Harrell out of Alabama, and then Richard Torres out of Texas. I think those are kind of your 4 leaders in the clubhouse for Nebraska's 2022 quarterback at this point, right? And I think they're all. It's a unique situation because you mentioned Bianco. It started with him and how he doesn't have as much exposure, but that does it just because we don't know as much about him doesn't mean that he couldn't end up being a fantastic product. We know Frost's history with going to Hawaii in the past. Torres is kind of in the same boat where he's kind of blown up as his film has gone around a little bit, but he has not kind of been exposed in the way that we thought he was going to be and pick up more offers. It just hasn't happened yet. Harrell's a kid that's definitely on the radar, as is MJ Morris, and I think Nebraska likes them all. I think in Nebraska's perfect world, they'd like to meet with those guys and or see them throw before they really go all in on a kid. But I know that Morris is a kid that has a lot of high interest around here because he's the highest rated kid of the group. But it's just unclear on what he's going to do at this point.
It is. And does he take an official, and does he throw for Super Mario and company? And do you get Bianco here to do the same? And I mean, I think it's pretty fair. You offer, and yeah, we got to offer you, but we also want to see you throw. And if you don't want to throw, or in person we're not as wowed anymore, we'll keep in touch. But Nebraska needs to do its best for them with these 4. They need to take the best guy they feel is going to give them the highest level. And it's been a weird year, so it's like ultra senior film, right? I mean, you've got to really kind of get this first in-person evaluation to trust your eyes and see if it's a fit. Right now, what's your read on who's here, who's not? Has that changed? Has there been additions as to some officials this summer with the quarterback position?
No, as far as I know, quarterback officials are the same. As right now, I think Richard Torres is the only one of those 4 that has an official visit set up. We mentioned Morris a little bit, and that situation is just something that I have an eye on. The fact that I don't believe he has any official visits set up right now. I know he had kind of talked about, and he had mentioned this to me, about maybe making that decision before he even takes any official visits. I don't know if that's even a wise decision, but we'll see kind of how that goes. It wouldn't surprise me if Nebraska wanted to get Bianco in here on one of those private workouts. The problem is trying to get him here, because I think that would have to be an unofficial to get him here from Hawaii and kind of do that. But that's going to throw a whole nother wrinkle in this whole thing of trying to get guys in for those one-on-one workouts that's allowed for this kind of 1 year only, it feels like right now, where guys can come in, work out for the team privately for 1 hour, and then he can really get a deep evaluation of a guy.
Greg, I want to get your take on some in-state recruits, just because Ernest Hausman's in the boat, but, I mean, still a lot of in-state talent out there. And with camp season approaching, I mean, we remember James Carney making a big push through camp season last year. Are there any guys that you think with a couple strong camp performances could maybe work their way into a Nebraska offer?
Yeah, there's 2 guys that I actually have kind of my eye on for this, and I think both of them actually have those private one-on-one workouts with Nebraska already on the books. Jake Applegate is a linebacker from Lincoln Southeast, who I know Schmidt's seen play and has been really impressed by him. He's an outstanding athlete, and I think that if he can, if he's made some gains in his game and gotten a little bit bigger, I think that will really help him, and he could be in a position. I think offensive lineman out of Bellevue West, Henry Rickles, is another guy that Mike Huffman has told me a couple of times that if schools had been able to come around and see his other guys, that they would have seen Rickles over the last year and really been impressed with him. And I know that he's another guy that's on Nebraska's radar as well.
I'll tell you this, you will not find a lankier, more physical hybrid defender. And I know Applegate can pick a spot in the back seven. I know he's more of an outside corner / safety / out. You know, I think he could kill it as an outside linebacker.
Yeah, kind of in that JoJo role,
right?
Or like Isaac Gifford.
Yeah, another Southeast kid, right? Yeah. I know. I think you just say, hey, AJ, you want to play ball? Sure. Here's your scholarship. I don't think you jack around just because he's an in-state kid. I'm not saying they're doing that, but he's good enough to play ball anywhere, is my take. A quick thought here as we wrap up. Gunnar Gatula, he's a name that's I've been hearing a lot. He's young, but, man, he's really talented, was really talented on that Southeast offensive line.
Yeah, anytime I think he was probably already like 6'6", 6'7", 280, pushing 300 in his sophomore year. Like, anytime you have that kind of size, and he's got good feet, right? He's an agile kid for that size. I think he's going to continue to be a kid that you hear more and more about. I can't imagine it's going to be that long before he's in the mix for a Nebraska offer as well. I'm sure he'll pop up at camp, too, coming up here this summer.
I would just like to add here my recruiting insight. From my time going to Southeast, Gunnar is obviously Coach's son. His dad, Ryan Gatula, is the coach. He was always hanging around. He's been around football his entire life, but his growth spurt was absolutely shocking. Like,
so did he go from like 4'2" to 6'8"?
It was like 1 year, like he came up to my shoulders, and I came back and watched a Southeast game the next year, and he was taller than me. I went, "What the hell happened?"
He grew. Yeah, you blink and they shoot up, and they're looking down on you all of a sudden. That's happening in my household, except he's got 2 left feet. That's his mother's fault. And there'll be no recruitment of Junior. Athletically.
But that's gonna happen, though. There's going to be those guys that teams haven't seen over the last year, right? And then they're going to see them now this summer. And, oh, man, that kid grew 5 or 6 inches and gained 60 pounds. Like, that's going to happen. It's going to be a cool thing to see.
It'd be even better if it's the old David Robinson factor where, you're going to grow 6.5 inches as a freshman in the Naval Academy. Right? You hit that lottery. Greg, we'll keep in touch. Thanks for the time today and appreciate your work.
Hey, thanks as always. Have a good week, guys.
There he is. The Straight Up Breakdown podcast is Greg Smith's pod that'll drop this week on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play. At Greg Smith HV on Twitter is where you find our recruiting insider.
He's in his 30s, but sounds like he was born with a stogie in one hand and a brew in the other.
Now, say my name.
It's Schmitty on Hail Varsity Radio.
I got the body of a taut, preteen Swedish boy.
Well, let's get into some NFL because the world is turning in Packerland. Teddy Bridgewater's trying to keep his head down in Donkeyland, and Julio, once out of the ATL. Skip and Shannon, I haven't watched that for years because I would hurt my TV. I'm not a Skip guy. But Shannon Sharp's locked in. NFL guy, great tight end. This was part of FS1 this morning with Julio and his sit-down.
Can you hear me? I got you. This is your favorite uncle. What's going on, bro?
Man, nothing much. About to go meet up with my brother. What's happening with you?
Man, look, you want to go to the Cowboys, Julio, or you want to stay in Atlanta?
Oh, man, nah, I'm out of there, man.
You out of there?
He's out of there.
Are you going to... Ideally, where would you like to go?
Right now, I'm just... I want to win.
Okay. Well, don't go to Dallas. If you go to... You ain't winning in Dallas, Julio.
Man, listen, come on, man. You already know I know.
Okay.
Can you remind him we're on television?
Ask him why we wore the Dallas.
Listen. You know how people is, man, with all that going on with the picture.
Yeah.
And all that stuff like that.
Okay.
Man, I ain't never been on that. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. That's good enough. Julio, I'll talk to you later. Thanks for calling me back. We on air, but I appreciate you calling me, dog. You know I know my nephew was going to pick up.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I ain't going to Dallas, man. I never thought about going to Dallas.
Okay. I appreciate that, bro. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Oh, by the way, we're on air. So do you think Julio didn't know he was on air?
I think there's a pretty good chance he didn't know because he just...
You can't freaking do that, Shannon.
In some states, that's actually illegal.
So what do you believe other than I'm out of there? I believe that. I believe it. Right now, it's going to take a first-round pick. Julio's 32, and that's Shannon just... It wasn't even drunk dialing. That was like... I'm on enough caffeine to kill an elephant dialing, and let's just call the nephew up.
It's so funny because like they're doing it like he's just holding his phone up to his mic in front of him, so it's like
it's like he's in his office.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like he's just
and Skip and whoever the hell else hosts. I mean,
my question is did Shannon actually call him and did Julio not know, or is this Julio saying, hey, I need some leverage here? Atlanta's trying to ship me off to Dallas and I don't want to go. Let me get on the show, make it sound like an accident. Let me say how much I don't want to go to Dallas. That's always a possibility. I was reading this interesting story about how like European soccer players do it last night where they say, yeah, it's embarrassing to go ask the owner to sell you to go play somewhere else. So you have to do all these crazy things to get the way you or get what you want.
Leverage it out. Yeah.
So that's my question. Is this leverage or is this Shannon Sharpe just being bad and not telling Julio Jones that he's live on the air?
This is leverage. This is absolute leverage. Shannon I would pray that he wouldn't do that to somebody he's close to.
And I would also think that Julio would come out with a statement after this interview saying, "Oh, I didn't know I was on the air. I apologize to both teams." Whatever.
I think. Do we need to really look at New England and Cam? I mean, that's the landing spot.
The two I'm seeing are Tennessee and New England.
Okay.
I think Tennessee might be in a better win now boat, which is what he was saying in the interview. He wants to win now. Mm-hmm. But I don't think we can discount, considering Julio is now trying to use leverage here. I assume trying to use leverage here.
Look, I want out, but I don't want to go here.
That makes me think his statement last week about going and wanting to play with Cam Newton that's where he wants to go.
Sure. Well, here's the reality. Base salary is $15 million. That's fully guaranteed. And we'll know more after June. The Falcons... $23 million against the cap in 21 if they move him. So they'll need some relief there. They'd probably like some relief. They've got help around him. They just got Pitts. They got Matty Ice. But, he had one of his worst years last year, 9 games due to injury. Still had 3 touchdowns, 771 on 51 catches, 15 yards a catch. Julio's the guy that gets you the big play in the offensive possession, but a lot of times doesn't get into the end zone. He's frustrating in that aspect. Now, he was a beast in the Super Bowl. He's a beast, and I still think he has some time left, but I don't know how much. Does he have one good year left? And then is he a guy that mentors younger wide receivers? New England doesn't go that way. New England's thing is we're going to take your first and best option away and make you beat us with your third choice. That's what New England does defensively. You have Cam Newton. You had some turnover issues. You've got Mac Jones, right, waiting in the wings.
My question is does he have a Larry Fitz career trajectory in him? Because body-wise, they remind me of each other. Larry Fitz is obviously, he's on another level, but can he become that guy?
Fitz is Fitz, and Julio looks 100 years old compared to Fitz, in my opinion, my humble opinion. And I will go back to this thing about Alabama, where they are gonna max out their
4 years with you.
They're gonna max out their least mileage. And sometimes turn you in with you're over the mileage number just to kind of compare it to leased vehicles. Bama's going to beat the hell out of you. Now, NFL teams like that because you come in more pro-ready, but you're not taking practices off. Julio ain't getting iced down at Alabama, wasn't. I mean, he's like everybody else at Alabama. They're playing full contact because they're better than you, and that's kind of the old school Nebraska way. I think it's New England, but I don't see him in Atlanta, and I think the surprise appearance is something that is to make sure that the world knows I do not want to go to Dallas. which is too bad. Aaron Rodgers, not at OTAs in Green Bay. A fist pump from Elijah Herbel. Does that mean there's more to this golf outing than just some mile-high views and some soft greens? I don't know.
I mean, we've known for a month now there's a rift between the Packers and Aaron Rodgers, so this isn't the most unsurprising news, but it is just confirmation that whatever has transpired in the past 2 weeks has not rebuilt that bridge that was burned between the Packers and Rodgers.
Does he walk away from like $30 million, though? I mean, that's the number that's floating out there with Green Bay. He goes back to Green Bay. I mean,
he's got that State Farm money. He doesn't need the Packers money anymore.
No, but dude, and he's made a lot of money as is, but it's still $30 million. And after taxes, it's still $15 million. So there's our little tour around the NFL.
For a second there, I thought you were going to get political with the taxes, but
no, not at all. Not at all. We'll dive into some final thoughts. Tomorrow we are at Haymarket Park, Road Show Tuesday for the Salt Dogs season/home opener. Their season began down in Texas, but the home opener for 2021 is tomorrow night. I can't wait to get down to Haymarket, see some ball, and have a live show. Good lineup tomorrow. Great stuff today from Mike Babcock and Charlie McBride and Greg Smith. We'll wind it down on a Monday. It's Hail Varsity Radio. We're presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Miss us?
Come here, brother. Give me a hug. Bring it in for the real thing.
We're on call for you. Catch the podcast at hailvarsity.com, the ESPN Lincoln app, or download them on iTunes.
Saddle up, partner.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time on a Monday, it's Hail Varsity. We're presented by the Nebraska Lottery. So, Elijah, what did you learn about the old bachelor party planning? You got to do that for your bro. Excited for you and your family here this upcoming weekend to celebrate. Was it a pain in the neck? Was it a good time? Was it stressful, or was it memorable thanks to the pictures that were taken during the event?
It was definitely stressful. First time ever planning a bachelor party for me. And the stress was good, but once you were there, it was great time. The checkbook took a bit of a hit, as I was fully expecting it to happen. But yeah, all in all, a very good time. Ended up, so we were up in Topgolf in Omaha, went and got dinner up in Omaha, came back to Lincoln, and spent some time down at Jake's downtown.
Oh, cool.
And we watched the Husker baseball game, at least the last couple innings of the Chance Roach
3-1
game. Yeah. So we watched the end of that one. All in all, yeah, good for him getting married.
Where'd you end the night? Did you go for last call someplace, or did you guys just all kind of head back home?
We all went to McDonald's.
Gotcha. Post midnight.
No, this is like a little before midnight. Actually,
Really?
This probably would have been about 10:30, 11.
Okay.
All went to McDonald's, and then
Did you do 20-piece McNugget or what?
Okay, have you had the new spicy crispy chicken sandwich?
I have.
I had it, and I have the McDonald's app because I'm a broke college student, and they have very good deals on there. If you're ever needing a good deal, McDonald's app's the way to go.
You should go talk to their GM.
They'd buy one, get one free crispy chicken sandwiches on there.
So you just crushed 2 of those.
So I crushed 2 of those.
Metabolism's awesome.
And what I'll say is, for being a chicken sandwich from McDonald's, it's not going to rival the likes of Chick-fil-A and Popeyes.
It's not Hooksy.
No, it's no Slim Chickens by any means. But what I will say is, for like a $3.99 2 chicken sandwiches type deal, very, very good. And it's probably, dare I say, the best fast food chicken sandwich. I mean, that's not counting the best burger place like McDonald's, Wendy's, Burger King.
There are some places that just want your money for a chicken sandwich, but it's part of the menu versus the feature.
Mm-hmm, yes,
on the menu.
Yeah. And I mean, McDonald's has done a lot of changing to their menu. The McDouble is like crazy expensive now.
Is that just? It's what's wrong with the good old Big Mac? Nothing is the answer.
Nothing's wrong with it, but I mean, if I'm going to McDonald's, I want to eat for $3. That's what I want to do. I'm not going to McDonald's for high-quality food.
I have a wife and kid, dude. $3? That's what the puke wants to spend on his drink.
Well, you used to be able to get like 2 McDoubles and a McChicken for like $3 plus tax. And now it'll run you like $6. It's ridiculous.
I go there, dude. I'll hit the drive-thru and I want like 3 regular hamburgers. Love just the regular hamburgers.
Just like ketchup, onions, mustard.
Yeah, that's it. Pickle, and I'm good. Reminder about buckling up. 70% of people in fatal crashes in Nebraska not wearing a seatbelt. If used properly, a seatbelt can reduce the risk of fatal injury by 60%. Your best defense in any crash, buckling up. Brought to you by the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. Come see us. If you're not heading to the Salt Dogs, hey, jump online and be a part of the home opener and do so at saltdogs.com. But road show tomorrow, 4 to 6, Haymarket Park ahead of the Salt Dogs. Talk to you at 4 with Hail Varsity. Tomorrow on the show, we'll check in with Blair Kirchhoff. We'll run down Mitch Sherman, Coach Rick Kaczynski tomorrow on a Tuesday.